Well, good afternoon, everybody. Yesterday, we've had the World Invocation Day and the Gemini full moon, Christ's unique occasion, the Festival of Goodwill, Festival of the Christ, Festival of Humanity, sometimes called in the East a Sala Festival, one of the really important events in the spiritual year, and increasingly important as the years roll by. We are talking about the return of the Christ here, the externalization of the hierarchy, the reappearance of the Christ, and we are in that book with program 70 as our work for right now. So a little segue here. In this section of our training themes, if I may call them so, we shall deal primarily with the response and the subsequent activity of the hierarchy in relation to humanity. And this will take the form of a new approach and a reappearance exoterically in just another 5 years, which is about 74 years or so after these essays have been written. Important decisions will be made about the methodology and the timing of the externalization of the hierarchy, preparing for the reappearance of the Christ. So here we are, page 563, with about 140 pages left in this commentary on the book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy. Excuse me. It would be wise, therefore, says the Tibetan, to keep the following ideas constantly in mind, and I will enumerate them sequentially for the sake of clarity. The work of the hierarchy throughout the ages has been fundamentally threefold in nature. Okay. A constant effort to set up a closer and more understanding relation with Shambhala. And we have to realize that, in a way, Shambhala appeared on this planet before hierarchy was actually formed. So the threefold attempt or work, point A, a constant effort to set up a closer and more understanding relation with Shambhala, and this involves an unfoldment of the will aspect in conjunction with a full use of intelligent love and will and love, Shambhala and hierarchy. A constant adaptation of the developing plan to the emerging, energizing purpose. Purpose is a constant in a way. Plan is adaptable and needs to be adapted as it comes time for certain phases of the purpose to emerge. An increasing ability to transmit energy from Shambhala to the three worlds, from the cosmic etheric levels to the cosmic dense physical plane. So this is one of the aspects of work described in a threefold manner. A closer relationship with Shambhala that hierarchy achieves. Will and love, adaptation of the plan to the emerging Shambhalic purpose, and the transmission from the cosmic ethers to the cosmic dense physical planes. This involves Mercury and Uranus, Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury and ruling the four cosmic ethers. And, excuse me, yeah, that's right. Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury is what I meant to say. And then Mercury, with its shuttle-like movement, bringing the two together. So this is the work of the hierarchy, and it's been threefold in its nature. Okay, the next point, to unfold within the periphery of the hierarchical center a life, a plan, and a technique which will train all who find their way into an ashram, which is in itself an aspect of the life of the hierarchy. This ancient and intelligent effort has created and conditioned what you know as the hierarchy. However, it is constantly subject to change in response to new situations and developments. So let's point this out a little. And a life, a plan, and a technique for training. That's what we have to have. And every ashram has its own methods of training. And if we are associated somehow, as so many readers of his books are, with Master DK's ashram, then there will be a unique method of training. It certainly does involve learning about the energies which are complex and involved in all efforts at elevation. We might say that Master DK has described for us a wealth of energies which need consideration. So this is the ongoing work of the hierarchy, a life, a plan, and a technique, kind of the life being the driving force, the plan telling us what must be externalized and when, and a technique which will make that externalization possible. And then the third phase of work to represent finally within the hierarchy the qualities of all the seven rays through the medium of 7 major ashrams and their allied and subsidiary ashrams. We know that Master KH is in charge of the entire second ray ashram, and Master DK runs or is the master of a subsidiary ashram. There's much reason to think of it as 2 sub 3, but there is also one who directs the 2 sub 2 ashram, and Master DK tells us he has 5 masters working in his ashram, which would be understandable if it were the 2 sub 2 ashram, but somehow there's a very powerful third ray with his work, I do believe. There are many other aspects of the hierarchical constitution and objective, but these 3 are the ones with which we are at this time concerned. So the work of the hierarchy, threefold in nature. Yeah. Okay. So these are ideas that we have to keep in mind. And they're being listed with their subsidiary ideas or thoughts. Next. Today, these are ideas to keep in mind. Today, the relation of Shambhala to the hierarchy is closer than at any previous time, owing to the following factors. Now, maybe when we think in that elevated direction, we think that hierarchy and Shambhala are very similar, but there are quite some distinctions between them. And we're not so much in a position to understand those distinctions, but it would be sufficient to realize that they do exist. So, a close relationship, and why is this? Due to these following factors. The one-pointed work and plan pursued by the 3 great departments in the hierarchy, the department of the Manu, that of the Christ, and that of the Lord of Civilization, in which the 3 leaders have unitedly acted as a triangle of transmission between the council chamber of the Lord and the hierarchy. They are all 3 members of the council, though none of them is yet working at the very center of affairs within the council. In order to be of greater service in their own sphere, they have taken their stand upon the periphery of the council's influence. So we see how it works. We human beings who are trying to enter the 5th kingdom of nature take our stand on the periphery of hierarchy and even on the periphery of some subsidiary ashram. And the 3 great lords take their stand on the periphery of the council at Shambhala. The analogy keeps ascending and it holds good. Then, this describes the increasing closeness of hierarchy and Shambhala. The invocative work carried out both consciously and unconsciously by humanity itself, which has been of such potency that it has penetrated beyond the ring pass not symbolically understood of the hierarchy to Shambhala itself, and has evoked response, as that response from the Lords of Liberation, which basically in the middle of the Second World War saved the day. This invocative work reached a high point of potency as a result of the World War, 1914 to 45, and its note and appeal are still persistent. Okay, the invocative work. Carried on by humanity. Okay. So these are things to, factors to keep in mind. That's what DK is telling us here. He's telling us keep the following ideas constantly in mind: the threefold work of the hierarchy, that closer relationship with Shambhala, and the life plan and technique, which are unfolding within the periphery of the hierarchical center, and to represent the 7 rays within the hierarchy, all in a quite full manner through the medium of the 7 ray ashrams. Okay, continuing with the ideas. Closer than ever is the relationship between Shambhala and hierarchy. And there has been one pointed work pursued by the Manu, the Christ, and the Lord of civilization. And they are the transmitters between the council chamber of the Lord of the world and the hierarchy itself. And then humanity's invocative work, which is so strong that it's reaching even beyond hierarchy and attracting response within Shambhala. This invocative work reached a high point of potency as a result, well, we might say, the misery, the stress, the oppression of the Great World War. And it's still appealing to Shambhala, and Shambhala has answered. There have been Shambhala impacts, 1975 and 2000, and we don't know what 2050 will bring. At least we're not told about that. Maybe in the next installment we will be. So the closeness, we might say here, there follows reasons for the increasing closeness of Shambhala and hierarchy. So really the coordinated work of the 3 great lords is one of those reasons, and the invocation by humanity, and also the rapid development of integration among the advanced people, which has forced many onto the path of discipleship, and therefore into certain ashrams, and has likewise enabled many disciples to take initiation. So this is, we might say, human progress, rapid development, human progress. Much sooner than anticipated. And probably some of us are involved in this rapid progression. One might say, well, it's about time. And then continuing the ideas to which we are to attend, the recognition by a very much larger number of the general public of the fact of the hierarchy. This has established a new type of relation between hierarchy and humanity itself, really. So even the rank and file of non-disciples, non-aspirants, let's say men and women of goodwill, and those who are rising in their intelligence, know more about hierarchy. It has been presented to them, yes, with many distortions and exaggerations and glamours, but still presented. Now, hitherto, the relation was dependent upon recognition by advanced aspirants of the nature of their position in relation to the hierarchy. Today, the recognition of thousands who are not in any way advanced aspirants or in any sense prepared for affiliation with the hierarchy has created a new type of problem. Interesting. It connotes to the hierarchy a promising development, though at the same time an embarrassing one, requiring as it does a different mode of adjustment to human demands than that entailed by the admittance of disciples to their ashrams. The expectations are different and sometimes very naive. And interesting, this word, did we see the word embarrassment, as it tends to make the subject of hierarchy, or to cheapen somewhat the subject of hierarchy because of the peculiar, unready behavior of those who are not in any way advanced aspirants. So hierarchy and humanity, maybe without the intervention so much of the more prepared advanced aspirants and disciples, hierarchy and humanity are coming into each other's spheres of recognition and influence. Okay, so it's easier to deal then with disciples and with advanced aspirants, easier for the hierarchy because of the greater training that such have compared with simply average humanity. It requires the attention of certain disciples and initiates in all the ashrams, and the ability of the hierarchy to penetrate and dissipate the thick cloud of inchoate thought forms which the bewildered, interested, and curious public have created anent them. Well, we have only to go into any fairly equipped bookstore selling esoteric books, and we see exactly what the Tibetan means. The appeal is considerable. Yeah, there's some sort of issue going on here. I'm not sure what it is, but anyway, I'm simply making a recording, and some others have thought that this is a program that I'm offering at this time, which I'm not. Anyway, people like ourselves who are working with the technique of light and the technique of the presence, and with the dispersion of Maya, are dealing somewhat as representatives of hierarchy as we try to rid the subtle bodies of humanity, try to rid them of the problems which they generally make because of their degree of development. Okay, continuing the ideas to which we must adhere, I would like to be able to rid myself of these issues here. Chat, maybe that will do it. There is no program going on now, tomorrow, for EUN. That's what happens for UN work at 4. Sorry for this interruption. Finish time, but you have to be able to handle these things as they do come up. Okay. Now the next idea that we're dealing with, the use by the hierarchy of the destroyer aspect of divinity. Now, normally the hierarchy is a great second ray body, and Shambhala wields the power of destroyer, but there is the first ray ashram within hierarchy, and there is also the Manu and that whole first ray line. So the use of this first ray in such a manner that it is in fact a creative factor, and one which in the last analysis not only releases the life from its previous limitations, but also calls in, under the law of balance, the building aspect of the second ray. So, you know, when we have a strong coming forward of the first ray, it is balanced by the ray which is to it the opposite, the second ray. So it's interesting, this law of balance. Okay. The work of destruction is now practically accomplished and over, and the work of the builders is beginning. Okay, so this is another one of those ideas that we have to bear in mind, and which the Tibetan tells us to attend to. Usually it is the work of the destroyer which precedes the work of the builder, clearing the ground, clearing the area in which the building must be done, eliminating the backward pull, which would continue and prevent the emergence of the new, of the good, the beautiful, and the true, as they can be understood at any present time. And there is a difference in understanding, a difference in what is good, what is beautiful and true at different times. Okay. So the closeness of Shambhala and hierarchy, this is what we've been dealing with internal hierarchical adjustments, invocative work by humanity, integration of advanced people, and then we have continued with hierarchy establishing a relationship with those who are not in any way advanced aspirants or prepared for affiliation with the hierarchy. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of make that a little bit bigger. Hierarchy has so much to keep in mind. You wonder, is it necessary for them to sleep when they can function so well out of the physical body? Then the destroyer is coming in, and it is a release from previous limitation. Then point 5, the new group of world servers has been created as an intermediate body between hierarchy and the general public. This group is divided into 2 lesser groups, those disciples and workers who are already integrated into some one of the ashrams and therefore would be at least initiates of the 2nd degree, and then intelligent humanitarian aspirants and workers in world affairs and in all departments. And this is an important answer to the question, can you be a member of the new group of world servers if you are not at least an initiate of the 2nd degree? And apparently the answer is yes. Intelligent and humanitarian aspirants can also be members of the new group of world servers. And I think even up to the 4th degree, you may be able to be members of the new group of world servers. After that, for the most part, you'll be organizing your own ashram. So 2 lesser groups, but still not the general public. The new group of world servers is not the general public. The general public is more the throat center of Sanat Kumara. The new group of world servers, a higher center, the Ajna center. And yesterday we were talking as well about humanity representing a kind of solar plexus center. But those have to be human beings who are far from the stage of spiritual aspiration. So anyway, these 2 groups unitedly form a transmitting agency through which hierarchy can reach the mass of men with the new concepts, the techniques of the new civilization, and the basic propositions under which humanity will move forward into greater light. An intermediate or intermediary bridging body, as you would expect from a body that is ruled principally by the 4th ray, though naturally having representatives in it from every ray. I'll just try to switch my position a little bit so it becomes a little easier to see. Okay, going on with these ideas that DK wants us to consider, the recognition by humanity of its major problems and the increasing ability of the general public to view these problems in terms of one humanity of the whole. This ability indicates to the hierarchy the position of humanity upon the path at this time, and the readiness of mankind for the new revelation to be followed later by the restoration of the mysteries. So first the revelation, and then the mysteries. E, the letter E is so often used, it's unfortunate when it goes bad under the key. Okay, so at least people know what the problems are more and more, and the man in the street, so to speak, is becoming more intelligent about them. And the degree of awareness and intelligence indicates to hierarchy the degree of progress of what he's calling here to be the usual type of humanity. The general public, yeah, that's what he's calling it. The general level of the general public is increasing in its stature, in its knowledge, in its understanding. Okay, going on with these ideas, and that's what DK has told us about here. He said, keep the following ideas constantly in mind. So I'm just going to blow that up a little bit. That's a little too much. Okay, keep the following ideas constantly in mind. And here comes another. The new orientation of the human family within itself to the concept of the one humanity and the intensely alert spiritual demand, which is today distinctive of mankind everywhere and which has forced the hierarchy to come to certain basic decisions and to readjust itself to a much closer cooperation with the human center. Well, you know, when humanity really changes and begins to importune hierarchy, according to the law, hierarchy must respond, must adapt, and must readjust. Forced hierarchy to come to certain basic decisions and to readjust itself to a much closer cooperation. We can almost see that Master DK, his kind of teaching, is a result of this forced issue with humanity pressing forward. It's so interesting about the human race. Sometimes it falls behind, it's quite irregular, and sometimes it pushes forward in a more importuning way than hierarchy might have anticipated. There's not a great deal of regularity about the progress. And this, it seems to progress by fits and starts, which is a characteristic of the fourth ray. And there are these constant points of crisis which can lead to a very compromised situation, or it really can lead to a great step forward. We see that sometimes, you know, in the way China used to be, with its great steps forward, its 5-year plans, its 10-year plans. Nothing quite like that has been found to the same degree in other countries, and let's say in the United States. That urge to formulate a plan may well correlate with China's third ray personality, and pushing forward, of course, with the first ray soul. So these are things which we have to keep in mind. Yeah. And it's all about hierarchy's activity in relation to humanity and humanity's reciprocal activity after being, shall we say, evoked from the invocation of hierarchy towards humanity. Without the upward sort of magnetism, humanity might not respond quite so strongly as it is now. Of course, we all have that, or so many of us have that, maybe sense of failure inherited from the moon chain debacle, which slowed everything down a great deal. And deep down, and maybe at an unconscious level, human beings are anxious to make up for lost time. It is interesting to note, says the Tibetan, though it is of no immediate moment, that the work of destruction initiated by the hierarchy during the past 175 years, therefore since the year 1775, American Revolution, French Revolution, revolutions in Europe, counter-revolutions. Anyway, this was the year in which the present cycle of the fifth ray was begun. So it's interesting to note, though of no immediate moment, that the work of destruction since 1775 has in it the seeds, as yet a very long way from any germination, of the final destruction which will take place when the hierarchy will be so completely fused and blended with humanity that the hierarchical form will no longer be required. Now, we have an analogy, don't we? There is the soul infusion growing within each aspiring individual, each working disciple, and there reaches a point of such great soul infusion that the causal body, egoic lotus, which is equivalent to the hierarchy and comes in on the great second aspect, is no longer necessary. The intermediate principle is no longer necessary. The three major centers will then become the two. And thus it is with the human being, spirit and matter. I'm trying to shift. Spirit and matter are the two, and the intermediate principle of soul no longer is required. The personality has absorbed what we call the soul. And of course, in a way, monad triad is the same as spirit soul. The triad is the true ego or the true soul. And the man has entered the impersonal world and is no longer building from below. The three major centers will then become the two, and the hierarchy will disappear, even as it was Shambhala that first appeared, and only Shambhala and humanity will remain. Well, in those early days, it was Shambhala and animal man. Only spirit or life and substance as an expression of intelligent love will be left. I mean, the love aspect will have been absorbed, and man, in a way, will be on his way toward becoming his own angel. This corresponds to the, well, yeah, obviously. This corresponds to the experience. Well, I'll just do this much here. Okay, the correspondence is what we've just been talking about. This corresponds to the experience of the individual initiate at the fourth initiation, when the causal body, the soul body, disappears and only the monad and its expression, the personality, a fusion of soul and form. It's not like the qualities of the soul disappear. The personality, a fusion of soul and form, are left. This event of final dissolution will take place only at the close of our planetary existence. So I think I'll separate that out. We anticipate and look forward to the much more individual process. And later will come this higher analogy as part of the planetary process. So this event of final dissolution, not even at the judgment day, I guess, but afterwards, will take place only at the close of our planetary existence, when the door to individualization is finally closed for a pralaic period, and the way of higher evolution will be more closely trodden than the path of initiation. So high will be the residence of the planet, from the judgment day onward, that the attention can be focused on much higher journeys, we might say. Not just the path of initiation, but the journey that will lead to the cosmic planes, the cosmic astral, cosmic mental, and even in one case, cosmic Buddhic, with two others unknown. And sometimes I wonder about the path of absolute sonship, which is the seventh path, and whether it doesn't take us even further than the path of the Solar Logoi, path 6, leading to the Buddhic plane, whether that path of absolute sonship does not somehow take us to the cosmic atmic plane. I do wonder about that. Therefore, my brothers, the closer relation of the hierarchy to Shambhala, now he's recapitulating here, the stimulation of its own interior life, and the readiness of humanity for revelation and for certain unexpected development will condition the cycle into which we are now entering. Does he mean the Aquarian cycle? Does he mean the greater Aquarian cycle? This is one of those cases where he can throw up an occult blind, and maybe we don't know. But no, it looks like he's going to say something about it. So let's just say that in the coming Aquarian age, some of these factors will emerge. The closer relation of hierarchy to Shambhala, thinking about that kind of constellation behind Polaris and how it will work through Shambhala, and the adjustments going on within hierarchy, of which we have been told there are many, and the keying up of human aspiration. and the greater numbers which are reaching that point where revelation becomes possible. This is therefore the most amazing period in the history of humanity. Well, there's DK saying it, that there have been amazing periods in the history of humanity, but this is the most amazing. And I suppose if we don't make progress now, the day of opportunity does not last forever. This he commonly says, and he talks about the second ray in that regard. Its 500-year cycle is over in 2075. But yet the Christ in hierarchy drawing closer, well, that will at least keep the second ray in play. Added to this, he says, it must be borne in mind that we are entering another greater round of the zodiac. Greater round. And this coincides with the lesser zodiacal activity because Aquarius governs the greater immediate cycle of 25,000 years. That's a rough number. And is also the sign into which the sun is now moving for a period of 2,300 years. So if all of this was written in the 1940s, and we could add another 2,000 years, and we get approximately, 200 years, we get approximately 2117. And then we might add to that 2160 plus a little less than 200 years. It'd be about 2,300 years. So it's a coincidence, a period in which the lesser and greater cycles are both ruled by Aquarius. So maybe the first period is Aquarius sub-Aquarius, but then we'll have Aquarius sub-Capricorn. Yes, Aquarius sub-Sagittarius, Aquarius sub-Scorpio, and so forth. These lesser equinoctial ages of approximately 2,500 years will be the subsidiary ages to the great age or Platonic year ruled by Aquarius. And the qualities will change accordingly, and the different types of achievements will emerge according to the qualities of energy available. So this is a most amazing happening and full of import in our planetary history. And he tends to tell us, how many times thus and so has occurred. And I think this is the seventh time in the Aryan age that the seventh ray has coincided with a cycle of Aquarius. So it is climactic because Aquarius itself has so much Uranus connected with it, so much seventh ray, and then the independent seventh ray cycle is emphasizing this as it accompanies Aquarius. It is a coincidence, all of this coincidence, of which our planetary logos is well aware and of which he is making full and intelligent use. It is a cycle also where for the first time the three major planetary centers, Shambhala hierarchy and humanity, are in direct and unimpeded relation. For today, the alignment is correct and adjusted for the first time in planetary history. So I guess he's telling us that we have to take advantage of these amazing coincidences. Okay. A time, certainly, when our planetary logos can move ahead in its initiatory progress, and in which we, through our affiliation with the right kind of groups, can be of value to that moving ahead. So it's the first time, and there is an alignment, and I guess what is in alignment has the possibility of going out of alignment. Even if this be only temporarily so, something has been initiated, the effects of which will never be lost. It is a cycle also in which the planetary logos, having successfully taken initiation, well, certainly the first, and then the subsidiary initiations, Cosmic Fire, page 384, and thus affected his entire planetary life, has also established certain extraplanetary relationships which are necessarily incomprehensible to you and of no moment whatsoever to the individual human being, but which will eventually create a situation in which our planet will become a sacred planet. So certain relationships, when you think about the sacredness, the becoming sacredness of our planet, you cannot help but want to include Mercury and Venus in a triangle with our Earth. The process as it unfolds and develops will have a potent subjective and deeply spiritual effect upon every kingdom in nature and in the realm also of supernature. Well, this seems a very good place right here on page 568 to pause and a bit of an amplification will be 563 to 568. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down. It is the end of program 70, and we've been introduced to threefold mode of working that hierarchy employs. We've been introduced to some ideas, maybe 7 of them, which are to be held in mind at this time. Now, obviously, all of this requires continuing study. There's no way in this short right, okay. Yeah, we're going to begin with a new theme, steps in the externalization process. And let's see here what we have. I believe it's 500 and, 568. Okay, and when we come back, we'll make a segue. This is program number 70, and it's approximately 1 hour and, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes, something like that. And we're going from 563 to 568, and today is the 6th of June, and we'll eliminate this. And we'll begin with program number 71. We don't know how long it will last, and we begin from page 568, and I imagine that today I'll be able to continue with at least one more program. So coming up next, the stages in the externalization process. We're getting closer and closer to something very practical, and in which we are perforce participating if we are real disciples. And every true aspirant, he tells us, has taken the first initiation. So for people who are hovering around that point, these statements are of value. Something has been started which will never be lost. And there are certain extraplanetary relationships here which will help our planet become a sacred planet. Now, if Mercury and Venus are involved, then their higher octaves, Uranus and Neptune are involved, and in a way the higher octave of Earth is Saturn. So the kingdoms of nature will change, and we will be ready to go on to the next section. And the important thing is that we learn how to cooperate with these hidden esoteric processes, keeping them always in mind and trying to see through all of the Maya and glamour and illusion with which we are surrounded. We are surrounded so often by what DK has called an unthinking emotional mess. That's the definition of Maya, almost humorous in a way, that he gives us. And regardless of all that going on, we have to keep our orientation strong and well directed, so we can really be of use. Okay, so 568, we'll be working there in just a little while, and lining up with that important year, which was so important for Renaissance activities in Europe, 1425. So lots of love, many blessings. Program 70 finished, program 71 coming up. See you then.